Welcome to VADA Live. I'm your host, Dan Kerrigan, here at VADA's headquarters in downtown Richmond. With VADA Live, your association is working to reach you where you are, delivering timely, relevant insights to help your dealership operations thrive. We like to think we're setting a new standard here for retail automotive association content, producing live and recorded interviews just like this one, trainings and in-depth conversations with industry leaders, two of whom are with us today. Well, coming up soon, if you haven't heard already, mark your calendars for our annual, and actually it's more than annual. It happens more often than that, doesn't it, Dan and Barrie? Legal and legislative update with sessions in both Richmond and Hampton Roads. These events serve as your download and roadmap for where retail automotive stands today and where it's heading. During those sessions, you'll hear directly from VADA President and CEO Don Hall, among and with our legal experts who are joining us right now, and Gambardella, General Counsel and Executive Vice President, and Barrie Beaty from Charapp and Weiss, LLP, and they're going to discuss the latest state and federal issues, proposed regulations, and critical legal issues impacting your business. You can join us in Richmond December 4th, Hampton Roads December 5th. So today, we are here just to have Ann and Barrie talk about those issues, give us maybe a little sneak peek as to what to expect. Ann and Barrie, I've talked enough. Welcome to VADA Live. How are you?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan and Ann. How are ya?
Good.
Doing great. Well, thank you again for taking time to speak with us. And let's just start really general as far as our questions. What are you tracking most closely right now in the automotive, legal, and legislative landscape? What is top of the list of potential issues or priorities right now?
I think I would jump in and say, the things that we're seeing the most are certainly a big focus on advertising, and we're going to talk a lot about that, be it CARS rule or junk fees rule. We're seeing some aggressive moves by manufacturers in lots of areas, lots of talk about EVs and the most recent election. And so those are sort of the top three that I see. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Barrie.
Compliance. I mean, it's becoming a different landscape of how to operate, whether the CARS rule's on hold right now, but you got your state AGs, you got your enforcement coming in from the states more, and you'll always have that whether the CARS rule is there or not.
Wow, appreciate that insight. Let's dive right in. So as far as the upcoming sessions, any reason why it's really an important time for dealers to attend these and learn more?
Well, I think it's always an important review of some things to think about. We spend a lot of time trying to really hone in on the issues that dealers need to think about and present the materials in a way that is useful and as easy to implement as possible. I know, Barrie, you do a lot of work on digesting a lot of these rules and putting them out there in a way that the dealers can really use.
Thank you, Ann. Honestly, it's one place where you can get a jam session of a reminder of how great our laws are in Virginia, and remember what is out there federally, and also realize, it's end of the year. You've got to start over in the beginning of the year. It's a recap of where things are going. There's a lot of information, and it's hard to get the information out without such a session. It's also important because you can ask questions. It's, we're live there. It could be a Q&A of, if you're having a problem, please present it to us and see if we can help you in any way.
And that is really amazing. And that question element, really important to point out, Barrie, just having all the minds in the room for whatever may pop up or what dealers may want to talk about as you're presenting. Let's go into franchise issues. They've been at the forefront. We all know that. What are the largest challenges legally right now? What should dealers really be aware of as it relates to franchise issues?
I think certainly we're the ones that you may see in the news in the highest headlines may not be something that affect the dealers immediately every day. You have Volkswagen Scout, for instance. That's not something that the dealer needs to do anything about right this second, but just know that we're on top of those things. I think the franchise issues that we try to cover are the ones that can really make a difference to the way the dealer is operating with their manufacturer every day, be it warranty reimbursement, be it, any number of things, facilities upgrades, those sorts of things, just reminding ourselves the protections dealers have on a day-to-day basis. I know, Barrie, you've been looking at a lot of things from dealers along the way, and I'm sure have many items that I might have forgotten in that little list to add to the discussion.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, Ann. I mean, I think a big thing about it is a lot of times the manufacturers will come to dealers, put a document in front of them, tell them they need to do something, give them the parameters, you can only do this, this, and this. I think dealers forget what protections they have, and as an industry, operating in Virginia, they forget that, this may actually affect others, for which if they're having a problem with it, so are other people. They just need to remember, the session definitely goes into, you get a document that is improper in our state, you have rights. So I think it's a reminder truly of their rights and how to enforce them within their business operations.
Advertising, key focus now. I believe, Barry, you mentioned that a few moments ago, both state and federal levels, quite frankly. What should dealers know about those current and upcoming enforcement trends around those practices?
I'll let Barry do the background.
Yeah, I was going to say, feel free. I can always call on whomever may want to speak first, but Barry.
Advertising is huge right now. I mean, Virginia, we have the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board, for which is the governing body per se over the dealers, and an advertising violation, you get a fine. They just put out their Dealer Talk newsletter, where on page 4, if you have not looked at it, it needs to be looked at, where, they're going to be really cracking down on advertising. They're going to start going after general managers for advertising, which is a big thing. I mean, you got to remember that's your licensing board. So advertising correctly is key. We're lucky that we operate in a state that does allow for processing fee and freight charges to be out of the price, but they need to be advertised. Make sure, we're going to really dive into the nitty gritty of advertising, because it is so heavily looked at. Customers know what's going on. Plaintiffs' attorneys know what's going, I shouldn't say what's going on. They're looking for problems. And so, the feds, are always looking at advertising because it's right there in front of everybody. But now the Motor Vehicle Dealer Board has really put the dealers on notice that they're really going to crack down on dealers for advertising violations. So we are going to do an in-depth review of advertising practices.
Well, and I think it's also, we're going to have a frank discussion about what the landscape looks like. If you look across the board at state and federal legislative and regulatory action, be it the fees that Airbnb charges, be it the fees that Live Nation, Ticketmaster charge on theirs, there's a groundswell out there on these advertising issues that goes far beyond auto dealers, and we just want to make sure that dealers understand that and can start getting their minds around some changes that may be looming in the not too distant future.
And a reminder that it's not, dealers need to realize that they're not just advertising on their website, okay? Every social media post, the third parties, they forget third party platforms. I mean, there is a lot when it comes to advertising, and it is huge. So we are really it really needs to be examined. People really need to go back to their stores and examine it after that discussion and see what can be done to make sure everyone's in compliance.
Pivoting slightly to the cars role, significant point of discussion. Can you walk us through those recent developments and maybe what dealers can expect at the upcoming sessions just with this rule and perhaps the impact on operations?
Barry, I'll leave you to do the technical, but on a practical side of things, I think certainly the results of the election may have diminished the chances of that rule's implementation, but that does not make a lot of these things go away. And dealers need to understand that. Barry, I know you and I have discussed this.
Yeah.
Every phone call we've had in the last couple of months. So,
I mean, just so we could give a rundown, it was enacted December 2023, was supposed to go into effect in June, at which point NADA filed a petition. It's been on appeal. They stayed it pending. It's on appeal in Texas through a federal court in Texas. There's been oral arguments, and the Texas court it's not a Texas court, it's really a federal court in Texas, has not ruled on it yet. No matter what the ruling is, it could go through, it could not go through, it doesn't matter. The big deal about it is what Ann was really talking about, is there is going to be changes to our industry, whether the CARS rule is there or not. There's implementation issues with it in some ways, such as the record keeping and some of the things they wanted in it. But it was, a lot of it was already kind of what the FTC wanted and kind of expects, like, all documents are signed. Someone has agreed to certain terms. And so customers are looking for those. The federal and state governments are looking for those. So whether the CAR rule is implemented or not, it will in some way be, dealers need to implement some of the things that were in it. So no matter if it's a rule or not.
That tracks. I remember some guidance from you, Barry, that we had in a recent newsletter at VADA to that end as well, knowing those uncertainties there. Shifting gears a bit, fair lending practices, everything, refunds, cancellations, credit card handling are all hot topics, I know. New regulations or enforcement actions, what should dealers really prepare for on that front?
Well, I think, again, back to Barry's comment about it's compliance. The fair lending feeds into a lot of the things in the CAR rule, about ancillary products and all of those sorts of things. So it is just a good time to do the, as I call them, the 8-day-a-week, 25-hour-a-day things. The things that you would be doing if you had 8 days a week and 25 hours in a day. We all just need to get back to our best practices and really buckle down on all things compliance, because it's not going to be getting any less strict out there. Right. There's not going to be less people gunning for the mistakes that this industry and other industries, quite frankly, may be making.
Fair lending is always, it needs to be fair lending. Whether no matter what administration is, no matter what CARS rolls around, fair lending is fair lending. We always say you need a fair lending policy and a VPP policy, and we kind of just gloss over that. I think at the session that we're going to have in December, I think it's really to examine what those policies should say. If you don't have one, I can tell you right now, your financing sources are asking for them. So if you do not have one, it is time to get one. And the easiest is NADA's, both of theirs. No need to reinvent the wheel. They are fabulous. But how are you using them? How are you training? And how are you implementing them? You can have a document, but it actually needs to be properly enforced, properly followed, implemented, trained on, and it can't be said enough. That is the law. So.
And one key theme that's really sticking out to me from both of you is now is the time to start learning and looking at these things. This may be the most obvious question I'll answer throughout this entire episode, but why is now such an important time to talk about, learn these issues, and really evaluate from the dealership side of things?
Well, I think we just have so many more eyes on us now. I think that there is, there's so many dealers out there that are doing the right thing and trying to do the right thing all day, every day, serve their customers. Their name's on the building. They've been there for generations in a lot of respects. But the strict scrutiny that is happening sort of across the board in industries about transparency and understanding what things cost. As things have gotten more expensive, people have gotten more interested in why they're more expensive and what all those costs are. So I think that is just part and parcel of the world we're in now, and it's just, again, time to really just batten down the hatches and understand that we gotta really, really, really keep our eye on the ball. Where it may have been a number of years that everything was, we were trying to all keep ourselves healthy and our businesses running during COVID. We were dealing with inventory shortages and lots of hiccups along those ways. Now we're back to a place where we need to just make sure we're doing, the ABCs the right way again.
Absolutely.
Perhaps safeguarding, if you will, which I may segue into another topic, really complex, affecting data protection as well. What are the primary really message for both of you to dealers on safeguards rule?
They're required to follow it.
Yeah, that's important to mention that right off the top, Barrie, for sure. Yes.
I mean, you're required to follow it. It was updated in 2022. I think 2022. It expanded it. You should have a compliance company in your dealership that really is helping you comply with that. I mean, even things that people don't think about. You need to get someone's license to test drive a car, and you say, "Oh, just text it to me." The license shouldn't be sitting on the salesperson's phone, and it's a possible personal device. It's not encrypted. There's so many things that happen in a dealership that people forget. Just normal talking to your customers that may or may not fall within the safeguards rule, for which dealers really need to think about. And so you should be having a compliance program. There's a safeguards compliance program, policies and procedures, again, from the NADA, but you should also have that so that there's a document, but it should be, you should have your compliance company come in, make sure that you're doing compliance audits, everything, encrypting personal information. You can't have a deal file just sitting on a desk. There's all kinds of things with safeguards rule, but you need to follow it, and you need to keep everything, people's private information private. So.
And there's just lots of great resources out there. One of the things that we try to do with our sessions is, point you in the right direction of somebody that can help you with this, because it is sort of almost, it basically is impossible to do it all yourselves anymore.
Yeah.
So, that's part of what we try to bring to the table as an association, is to corral those resources for you in one place so that you know where to go.
And I'd be remiss not to ask about personnel practices evolving rapidly. So everything from hiring, training, retaining staff. What are important legal considerations right now?
Training, definitely training. You're making an investment in people. This is a people-dominated industry. It is, not to quote a certain group, but it's true. Love people more than cars, and that is from a SO2. Just throwing it out there, because the truth of the matter is, you're only as good as your people. So you are making an investment. You spend the money to make an investment. You want to make sure that everyone is, no discrimination, treated fairly. Make sure you have a proper, there's all kinds of legal things, but the truth of the matter is, you can bring in as many documents. It's always documents or, handbooks or whatever. It's also training. Make sure if get your people out there and know you expect something, they also expect something, and they expect to be trained in the manner for which you would like them to work. So,
sure.
Well, and training is not, you're here on your first day, we'll get you trained on this. Training is an ongoing thing. The
yes.
The inspect what you expect mantra, and making sure that you're addressing any issues for people who, this is complicated stuff. They may not get it the first time around. Mm-hmm. I know I don't. So it may be that you need to go back and you do need to be looking at what's going on in your dealership on a day-to-day basis, and then retraining where something is slipping through the cracks or didn't get implemented quite the way you wanted it to, and make sure that that it's an ongoing thing. It's not just, here's your new employee orientation for the first morning you're here, and after that, go sell cars. It's a little more complicated than that these days.
Appreciate, again, both of you taking time. As perhaps one final question, any one takeaway item, largest piece of advice for dealers going into 2025 you'd like to share today? I know it's tough.
I know. I just think it's like Barrie said, compliance. It's the details.
Yeah.
We gotta be paying attention to the details every day, as difficult or exhausting as that can be, and to understand that the resources you may need to bring in to help you do that.
We're in the selling business, everyone, sell and service vehicles, but within the bounds for which you're allowed, and to look at them. Dealers sometimes look at the macro, and now it's time to look at the micro, and that goes back to Ann's. I mean, it's within knowing what is allowed within the law. So.
Well, thank you so much, Ann and Barrie, for joining us. It's valuable insights and just learning more about the legal landscape shaping the industry. Before we wrap up, just offering another quick reminder about the upcoming VADA legal and legislative update. You can join us December 4th in Richmond or December 5th in Hampton Roads for in-depth sessions, this and more, covering the latest state, federal regulations, key issues impacting the business. You can find full event details for both sessions on our events page at VADA.com. Again, Ann and Barrie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dan Kerrigan. This is VADA Live. See you next time.